Long before kingdoms, long before written history, before swords, shields, or armor even existed. Two tribes clashed in what scientists call the oldest recorded human battle. It was a battle fought with stone tools, wooden spears, raw strength, and pure survival instinct. Today, we step back 13,000 years to witness the brutal and mysterious conflict known as the Battle of the Red River. The story begins in 2012, when archaeologists were excavating a dry riverbed in East Africa. Beneath layers of ancient mud, they found something shocking. 27 human skeletons, frozen in violent positions. Many had stone spear points lodged directly in their bones. Some skulls were crushed by blunt force. Few of the bodies were even bound at the wrists. These were not the remains of animals. These were not accidents or natural deaths. This was war. As the scientists carefully brushed away millennia of sediment, a grim picture emerged. They found a young woman, pregnant at the time of her death, with her hands tied. They found men with obsidian blades still embedded in their ribs and skulls. The positions of the skeletons told a story of a sudden, violent encounter. It was clear this wasn't a burial site. It was a battlefield, preserved for thousands of years, offering a chilling glimpse into humanity's distant, violent past. This was a moment frozen in time, a snapshot of our ancestors' struggle for survival. Based on the evidence, researchers began to reconstruct the events of that fateful day. They realized the valley, which is now a barren, dry landscape, once held to rival groups. For the sake of understanding, let's call them the River Tribe and the Mountain Tribe. The River Tribe were likely hunter-gatherers who lived permanently beside the flowing water. Their lives revolved around the river, fishing for its bounty and collecting edible plants along its banks. It was their home, their entire world. The Mountain Tribe, on the other hand, were likely nomadic hunters. They moved with the seasons, following game from the highlands down into the valley, especially during dry periods when resources elsewhere became scarce. The valley was an oasis, rich with fish, wild game, and most importantly, clean water. It was a prize worth fighting for. But there was a problem. It wasn't big enough for both. As the climate shifted and resources dwindled, the two tribes were set on a collision course. Only one could control this precious territory. Tension began to build. The River Tribe depended on the valley for their very survival, and the arrival of the Mountain Tribe placed immense pressure on their food and water supply. What might have started as simple competition slowly soured into anger. Perhaps a stolen basket of fish or a confrontation over a hunting ground sparked the first flames of conflict. Anger then turned into small-scale raids, which in turn triggered a deadly chain of retaliation. It's important to remember these tribes had no shared language to negotiate. There were no leaders to sit down and broker peace. Their interactions were governed by instinct, necessity, and the raw, primal drive to survive. The air in the valley grew thick with fear and suspicion. Every shadow could hide an enemy. Every footprint could signal an intrusion. Final, devastating clash was becoming inevitable. The battle didn't begin on open ground, with two armies facing each other. It began with a brutal, calculated ambush. The archaeological evidence shows that several members of the River Tribe were attacked while they were vulnerable, possibly collecting water or fishing near the river's edge. Spear points found lodged in their bones indicate they were surrounded and attacked from multiple sides. Some were struck in the back, suggesting they were trying to flee. Others were stabbed at close range, a sign of a vicious, merciless assault. The attackers came from the tall grasses and rocks, a wave of silent death. This was not a random fight that simply broke out. The precision of the attack, the element of surprise, the specific targeting of vulnerable individuals, it all points to a planned, strategic operation. It was a cold-blooded opening move designed to cripple the River Tribe before the real war even began. After the shock and horror of the ambush, the River Tribe retaliated. They gathered every hunter, every spear, and every sharpened stone blade they possessed. They weren't just defending their land anymore. They were avenging their dead and fighting for their very existence. The main battle took place along the banks of what was once the Red River. This is where the scene becomes one of absolute chaos. Researchers found skulls with devastating fractures, consistent with blows from heavy stone clubs. They unearthed spears tipped with razor-sharp obsidian, a volcanic glass that creates an incredibly lethal edge. The arrangement of the bodies was also revealing. Some were found lying in what appeared to be defensive lines, suggesting the tribe tried to form a barrier, perhaps to protect their women and children who were caught in the fray. This was the moment when a series of skirmishes escalated into organized full-scale combat. What this ancient war reveals is something truly surprising. Even without written language or complex societies, these early humans used tactics. The evidence from the battlefield points to a level of strategic thinking that is astounding for its time. We see flanking attacks, where one group would engage the enemy from the front, while another circled around to strike from the side. We see ambush positions set up behind rocks and natural cover. The discovery of multiple bodies with similar spear wounds suggests coordinated volleys of spear throwing, with hunters launching their weapons at the same time for maximum impact. And perhaps most poignantly, the evidence of protective circles indicates they understood the need to shield the more vulnerable members of their tribe. This proves that early humans were not mindless savage fighters. They planned, they communicated through gestures and signals, and they worked as a team to overcome their enemies. Their battlefield intelligence was just as critical as their weapons. The battle ended in a massacre. The remains show that many from the river tribe died a violent death. Others were taken captive. Their hands were still tied when their skeletons were discovered 13,000 years later. The mountain tribe likely claimed the valley after their brutal victory, but their triumph did not last. The climate continued to change. The once lush valley grew arid, and the river that was the source of all life and all conflict eventually dried up. With the water gone, the land could no longer support anyone. The victorious mountain tribe was forced to move on, vanishing from the area, just as their rivals had. In the end, nature had the final say. Only their bones remained, buried in the sand, telling a silent story of the oldest human war ever found. This battle, frozen in time for 13,000 years, shows us something powerful about our own nature. It reveals that humans have always fought for survival, for land, for resources, and for their families. The conflict between tribe and tribe was not the very first act of war in human history, but it is the oldest one we have ever discovered. A physical record of our species' long and often violent past, and it reminds us that even in the earliest days of our existence, war, in its most primitive form, was already shaping our destiny. Thanks for watching. If you found this journey into the past fascinating, don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories from our ancient world.